I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War.
Listen, Mr. President, I myself, as an immigrant, I love the smell of deportation in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening.
They are in response to President Trump's vow to crack down on crime and illegal immigration in that city. So who's in favor of crime? Well, there you go.
I believe only criminals would be opposed to the idea of bringing more authorities to protect the community. More authorities to protect the residents, protect the businesses, protect the tourists. Why else would you be against that? Guys, let's be real. Chicago knew Brendan Johnson was not qualified for the job. They knew he was a DEI candidate. Matter of fact, Brendan said exactly what he was going to do if he becomes mayor, to defund the police. The residents still voted for him. I'm sorry to say, guys, right now, the mess that is happening in Chicago, this is exactly what you voted for. This is exactly what you asked for.
He's also named Baltimore and New Orleans as deep blue cities that need the same treatment that is working in Washington, D.C. The president addressed the crime during his speech earlier this hour from the Religious Liberty event.
We'd love to go into Chicago and straighten it out. You know, Washington, D.C., you'll be happy to know, is a free and safe zone. It's so safe right now.
Washington, D.C. is so safe right now. Even the Democrat mayor had to admit it. Even her, she had to say, thank you, President Trump. Thank you, Papi Trump, for sending the National Guard and fix the mess in D.C.
At a press conference yesterday, Bowser thanked officers and reported an 87% decrease in carjackings, as well as a 15% drop in overall crime. That's just in the 20 days since the federal takeover began. Watch.
We greatly appreciate the surge of officers that enhance what MPD has been able to do in this city. We know that when carjackings go down, when the use of gun goes down, when homicide or robbery go down, neighborhoods feel safer and are safer. So this surge has been important to us for that reason.
Guys, who would have thought bringing more federal authorities to your city would decrease the crimes? Who would have thought that? Anyone but the damn Democrats. It is obvious. If we have the National Guard here, of course the criminals, they're gonna think twice before they act stupid. And if they act stupid, the likelihood for them to get caught increases drastically. Now, after the mayor of DC admitted herself, yes, the presence of the National Guards here helps a lot. You would think Chicago would say, you know what, Mr. President, we apologize. Please send the National Guard. You would think Mayor Brendan Johnson, for once, would use common sense to protect the residents of Chicago. Nope. He doubled down on his stupidity. He doubled down on his radical ideologies.
I don't know why Chicago isn't calling us saying, please give us help. When you have, over just a short period of time, 50 murders and hundreds of people shot, and then you have a governor that stands up and says how crime is just fine. It's really crazy. But we're bringing back law and order to our country.
Well, yet another bloody weekend to add to what's happening in Chicago. 18 shootings left at least 6 people dead, 12 wounded. And President Trump turned up the heat, as I mentioned, Saturday with an AI-generated post playing off the epic Vietnam War movie Apocalypse Now. He wrote, I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War.
Listen, Mr. President, I myself, as an immigrant, I love the smell of deportation in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, whenever, please. Now, I already know there are going to be some people in the comments reminding me that I have an accent. There are going to be some people telling me President Trump is going to deport you next. Let me tell you guys, all these countries in Africa, all these countries in the Caribbean, if they had a president like President Trump, Africa would be way better today. The Caribbean would be way better today. If they had presidents that say, you know what, let us take care of our people first. Let us not sell the resources of our country to outsiders while our citizens are suffering. If they had presidents that say enough is enough, we have to follow law and order, Africa would be better, the Caribbean would be better. So we have to support things that make sense. For example, when you have mayors like Mayor Brendan Johnson, that is taking the taxpayer money to take care of illegal migrants. This man used over $600 million of the taxpayer to take care of illegal migrants, giving them housing, food, and even pocket money. While we have people in Chicago, American citizens in Chicago, that are suffering, that are sleeping in the streets. This is nonsense. Anyone that supports this ideology, you lost a couple cells. You lost a couple brain cells, I'm sorry to say.
The left instantly taking the bait. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson posted, "The president's threats are beneath the honor of our nation." Illinois Governor J.D. Pritzker with, "The president of the United States is threatening to go to war with an American city. This is no joke. This is not normal." Other prominent Democrats are also talking.
The president of the United States essentially just declared war on a major city in his own nation. This is not normal.
The terrible things that the President of the United States is saying about using troops in the Department of War in the city of Chicago is an embarrassment and disgusting.
I call it a threat. I call it embarrassing. I would call it performative.
How much money they pay these Democrats, these people, to say those things? How much money they pay them? Because obviously, guys, it's working. We have the pure example of DC, what we call a proof of concept. We have the proof of concept in Washington, D.C., right in front of our eyes, where bringing the National Guard helps. How much these people are getting paid to spew garbage on national television?
And what do you call Labor Day weekend when 58 people were shot, including a drive-by that left 7 people in that one shooting wounded? What do you call that? That's also a threat to the public, or a definite threat to the public. The president yesterday getting into it with a reporter who had a question about his media post.
That's fake news. When you say that, darling, that's fake news. Be quiet. Listen. You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second rate. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
Every time I remember that President Trump is in the White House, it's not Kamala Harris. If I was having a bad day, it just makes my day, man, because God damn it, man. God damn it, the president that knows common sense.
Who wants to live in a city where they shoot up like that on a regular basis, the citizens of the city? Power panel now. Cassie Smedley, former RNC press secretary, and Megan Hayes, former Biden director of message planning. Look, Megan, no matter how you spin this, no matter what you do, it is unsustainable for the citizens of Chicago, whether they're living in the direct areas or nearby. It affects everybody. It affects the safety of the city and their bottom line in what they spend and attract tourists, so on and so forth. What do you say about the pushback on cleaning it up the way it's been cleaned up in D.C.?
Well, unfortunately, Chicago's the 27th most dangerous city in the country. So there are 26 cities that are more dangerous to live in, which is really unfortunate for all of these Americans that are living like this. And I would say he didn't clean up crime in D.C. It's put a pause on crime in D.C. There is no way when the National Guard leaves or the federal law enforcement pull out that crime won't return to D.C.
So what you're saying right now, we should just have the National Guard permanently in D.C. That's what you're saying. The local authorities do not have the competence to do what the National Guards are doing. Therefore, we should just have the National Guard there permanently. That's what you're saying.
So that's an excellent point. So what do you say to those Democrat leaders that aren't making a plan right now to have sustainability in the safety? You make a great point. Your team is in charge. So when the president pulls back with his team and we're left to Democrats to secure D.C., you're saying right now, Megan, it's going to be as bad or worse than it was before. I want to get to Cassie real quickly just to respond to that.
And welcome to DEI candidates. Welcome to DEI mayors. Welcome to incompetent individuals that get to office by using identity politics. Because I'm a woman, because I'm a black woman, because I'm a gay. That's what happens when we support mediocrity.
I would note that Mayor Bowser actually signed a declaration last week saying we're going to continue to fully cooperate with the president and the National Guard because she sees the positive impact that it's having. And to your point, Harris, for those of us who spent a lot of time living in D.C., you know I'm on my 1-year anniversary of moving out of there, largely because it wasn't a safe place to raise my family. The city council is the real problem in D.C., and the mayor knows that. And so she's saying, I will take the support to try and make the city safe because I don't have a government that's willing to work with me. But you'd think that mayors in these other cities would see what's happened in D.C. and say, I'd take that. I would like to try anything to make the streets safer for my citizens, whether I'm the most dangerous city in the country or the 100th most dangerous city in the country. Who doesn't want to make...
And you guys see how violent this criminal is being right now with the cops. And then when something bad happens to him, you're gonna see all these protesters in the street calling Black Lives Matter. Bunch of garbage.
It's safer for their citizens. And I would just point out that President Trump has pretty marvelously goaded Democrats into defending criminals against their own citizens and constituents. And that's what voters and Americans are paying attention to every time we see Democrats say, we don't want your help. We don't want to make our streets safer.
Right. If you say you don't want the help, you don't want to make the streets safer, you are basically taking the sides of the criminals.
Megan Hayes is a free thinker. You can't goad her into anything. So I'm curious to know, what do you say to those Democrats now that are taking the bait?
I don't think people are necessarily taking the bait. I think people are trying to turn the focus away from the theater of these actions and the theater of the post, because that's what Donald Trump does want people to do, is take the bait and try to...
How do you call it a theater when the mayor of D.C. said, yes, it helps drastically? I don't get it.
Refocus the conversation back on the economy, because I think that's overwhelmingly, there was a poll that came out yesterday, overwhelmingly what all Americans are caring about is the cost of living, the cost of groceries, the cost of housing. And so I think that that's what Democrats should be focused on doing, is turning the conversation back to the economy. But just going back on your DC point, I just want to point out the federal government took $1 billion out of the DC government, which could have gone to community programs and getting more police on the street. And so I think if the federal government really wants to work with DC, and I know it's a very different situation in DC because of home rule and they're not a state, they need to be working together on the budget piece of this. And I agree with the city council piece. So and I fully admit that is very different than Chicago, but there are many more steps here in DC that could be taken to keep it safer.
She mentioned the economy. She said the economy is very important. Indeed it is, but before the economy, you know what is very important? Being safe. Staying alive. Because at the end of the day, if you lose your life, it doesn't matter how well the economy is doing. It doesn't matter how well stocks market is doing. You're gone free. So yes, the security, the safety of the people is extremely, if not even more important than the economy. And also she's asking for more money. You know what they are going to do with this money? They're going to give it out to local nonprofits and expect some kickbacks. That's what they are going to do with the money. And that's exactly what Brendan Johnson is also asking. He's asking for $800 million. When you ask him, what are you going to do with this $800 million? He said, we're not going to hire more police officers. We're going to give it out to nonprofits so they can help with mental health. What are we talking about? We have criminals in the street. You don't talk about... Man, it's hard. It's hard, man. It's hard.
I don't know how much money would need to be spent, though, to keep people from killing 58 people across the Labor Day weekend in Chicago, outside of D.C. Your quick last thought, Cassie.
Yeah, again, this is the reason that crime maybe has fallen off as the #1 issue is because, for example, the border. President Trump got into office and he secured our border again. That's why it's fallen out of one of the top 3 issues that the American people care about. Of course, the president's working on the economy. Of course, he's working on bringing down gas and grocery prices. We saw the lowest gas prices year over year since President Trump took office. So all those things are happening while Democrats continue to just say orange man bad.
It is extremely suspicious how President Trump was able to protect the border in less than 100 days. Yet, Biden could not do it in 4 years. Kamala Harris could not do it in 4 years. Now, we know President Biden and Kamala Harris, we know they were extremely incompetent. But it's hard for me to believe leaving the border open for 4 years was incompetence. It's hard for me to believe that. Now, was it incompetence or was it intentional? I don't know. I don't know if we will ever know. But nonetheless, I'm happy President Trump is here to fix the mess Biden has left us with. And of course, guys, if you have not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Like this video so it can help me with the algorithm, so the algorithm can pick it and put it right here, you understand, as I continue to bring more and better content and call out the nonsense from all these liberals, the nonsense from the Democratic Party, and support and uphold conservative values, because that's what made America the greatest country on the planet. Therefore, we must continue to promote those conservative values, because if we leave this country in the hands of these lunatic Democrats, they're going to destroy it. May God protect you, and may God protect the United States of America. See you in the next video.